Hi and welcome to the Night Shift Court podcast.
We are three Aussie girls going under the mountain to talk fantasy books.
Join us in going beyond the pages where we will talk about our favourite authors and their series.
Come with us to explore the stories, one shift at a time. Hi ladies.
Hello.
Hi, and welcome back to the Night Shift Court podcast, episode frickin' 9. We're almost at the end of A Court of Thorns and Roses, which is absolutely incredible. I'm Moen,
Pidge.
Roz.
and we're so glad that you can be here with us. And hopefully you guys have caught up. If you haven't, make sure you go back to episode 1 and listen from the beginning. And if you've been here every week, thank you so much for listening. And we hope that you've been enjoying the fact that you can now see us on YouTube. So hi to all our YouTube fans. So we're going to get into this episode. We are getting into the very dark nitty gritty now, guys.
Yeah.
So chapter 36. Feyre gets taken into the arena and we get some more gruesome imagery about the conditions. So slick, wet mud.
Yuck.
Yeah. She is looking out at this crowd who appear really cruel and taunting, which is a really stark contrast to how they end up treating her after the end of the third task, which is really like it's a big moment. So she's looking out. All she can see is hate on people's faces, which is quite scary looking, to be honest.
Yeah. And there must be so many Fae there.
Heaps.
Because it's all the courts.
Everyone's there, right?
Yeah.
And everyone's forced to be there. So it's not exactly a nice place to be. Even if they're not on her side, which they can't seemingly, even if they want to be, they can't because Amarantha is so ruthless in how she treats everyone. There's no way that you're supporting Feyre. You might bet for her, which we learn one person does.
Yeah. Well, I don't think anyone else would have been game enough to.
No. That's right.
That's the other thing. Like you said, they can't be seen as outwardly supporting her.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's their life on the line.
Exactly. So we get introduced to the concept of many a High Lord being in the room. And I'd like to take this opportunity to get to know the High Lords. Yeah. So I did some research. We're going to start with Summer. So Tarquin, the High Lord of the Summer. His powers, so cool. I love talking about and learning about people's powers because it's what makes them who they are, right?
Yeah.
So Tarquin has the power of water manipulation and all of them can winnow as well. So
Yeah. It's not court specific.
no,
Yeah.
everyone can winnow basically. So it does list that as a power, but that's common. So the city of Adriata is where their home is, if you like, and he's described as having white hair and turquoise eyes. So he's really
Stunning.
and like elemental in the water sense. Like his appearance reflects who he is with his power, which I think is so freaking cool.
Yeah.
So Summer, along with Day and Winter Court, rebelled against Amarantha and she killed the High Lord. So Tarquin took the seat of the High Lord who was killed before him when they rebelled against Amarantha.
Yes.
So he's got a couple of cousins that get named, Brucius
Okay.
and Nostrus. And we learn about them, but they're not important right at this moment. There's the other princes of Adriata, Crusader and Varian, who we obviously get to know later on down the track. And his traits are kind, compassionate and thoughtful. And he wants to unite high fae and lesser fairies, which is why him and Feyre become so mutually respectful of one another because he really shares that along with Feyre because she's like, well, why is everyone different? Like
We see
human.
a lot of that in book 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's Tarquin, which he's probably my favourite.
Okay.
Yeah. Thoughts?
No,
Okay.
just interested.
Okay. So Thiessen, the High Lord of Dawn. Okay, so his powers are healing, which is really cool because don't forget these powers are bestowed upon someone eventually. Very important. So he's the son of an unnamed female from a city called Zion who sought asylum in the Dawn Court during the Loyalist War on the continent. So his lover is the captain of his guard and the commander of the Peregrine Aerial Legion. That's a mouthful.
So they're a same-sex couple?
Correct.
Yeah.
He glows the brightest of all the High Lords. He's described as being slender, brown skin and hair kissed with gold as if sunrise had permanently gilded it. He's got deep and rich eyes and voice, which, hello.
Yeah.
Hi.
I feel like you're changing your favourite every time.
I mean, we know this about me.
Yeah.
Okay, so Helion. Very important character. High Lord of Day Court. His nickname is Spell Cleaver. And he has several powers, which is very cool. So air manipulation, light generation, curse breaking, shape shifting, and of course, as they all do, winnowing.
Curse breaking.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
many.
Yeah.
How interesting.
I know.
What a weird,
I feel
Yeah.
like
weird one to
nothing.
throw in there.
Just a little nugget.
Yeah, nothing's a coincidence.
Nothing.
No.
No, absolutely not. He's described as having amber eyes and black hair.
Okay.
He's cold in nature, and he's described as he keeps glancing at the lady of the autumn court. And then we go on to learn that he is of the bisexual nature because he has a bit of a thing for fantasizing about as
Oh, yeah.
Moore
Yeah.
and Cassian
Yeah.
all being in the same bed
Yeah.
along with him.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
yeah.
Where do I sign? I'm down.
Yeah.
Why choose?
Why choose?
Wide
Why?
shoes.
Yeah. It's just... Anyway, moving on. Callias, the High Lord of Winter Court. So he has ice manipulation, which I just like it screams Elsa from Frozen.
Yeah. That's now all I'm going to think
Yeah.
of. Him in a dress with like long blonde hair. Yeah.
Yeah. So his wife is Vivian, who's pregnant during the series, and they're great. They're great friends of Moore.
Yeah.
Vivian and Moore are like besties, and Callias is like, oh, cool, like he's just over there doing his thing.
Yeah.
His appearance is described as white hair, pale skin, appears frozen with crushing blue eyes. Just glacier, like glacial type.
Yeah.
So cool. I just love it. And then finally, because we're not going to talk about Tamlin or Rhys because we obviously deep dive into their behaviours, there's one more. Bayron Van Sarah. He's the only person that I think, other than Feyre, who is full named. Like Lucian Van Sarah is named fully, but we don't really do we learn anyone else's surnames, so to speak?
No.
Yeah.
We don't know races still.
Yeah. So
with
it's
the
weird.
last book. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I kind of think that I'm not sure if that's just because of the situation between Bayron and Lucian. We'll come to learn that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So he's noted to be 500 plus years old. He's the High Lord of the Autumn Court, and his power is fire manipulation. Very fitting for being like autumny, red,
Yeah.
burnt kind of vibes. So he's Lucian's father. Fell in love. So what we know about Lucian and his father's relationship is that Lucian fell in love with a lesser fairy called Jacinda, right? So Jasminda, rather. Sorry.
Okay.
And Bayron killed her in front of Lucian
Yes.
because he was like, "She's not good enough for you. She's a lesser fairy. What are you doing? You're a High Lord's son," and executed Jasminda.
We didn't. We don't find out what sort of lesser fairy she is.
No,
do we?
no. I don't think so anyway.
No.
Not,
At least not yet.
so, like, obviously Lucian despises that man since that and basically was like, fuck you, I'm out, and obviously went to live with Tam in the Spring Court and renounced his Autumn Court name and the claim to what would have likely been his seat as a High Lord. So Bayron's appearance is described as tall and slender. He's described as handsome. He's brown-haired, and he's known to pay his farmers really poorly.
Okay.
Such like a
Yeah. Yeah.
I find it so funny that like out of all of them, he's the most normal.
Yeah.
Like all
as
of
in like
them
a stooge or
as in like visually. Like
sure.
all of them have like such like integral kind of things with their appearance that
Yeah.
goes with like their court.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of like, you have brown
Yeah.
hair.
He's just beige.
Beige.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. So that's the introduction to these beautiful, mostly High Lords, so that you can kind of see the epic writing that Mars does, that she like weaves in powers to appearances or vice versa, which I love because it makes it so much easier to visualize these characters in real life because it's a world that we want to live in if we could choose.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the first task.
Yeah. She's taken from her cell by two red-skinned lesser fae. So they're the same two that have come and collected her on multiple occasions, and the same two that do collect her for the next two trials as well. She's dragged in front, as you said, in front of this court where everybody is standing around watching her, seeing what's going on. The floor's disgusting, covered in mud. It stinks. She's taken straight up to the throne where Amarantha and Tamlin are. However, in this situation, she's just sitting on a plain wooden chair, like nothing super amazing, up on a bit of a sort of a wooden platform. The Ator then pushes Feyre backwards into these disgusting, like massive pits, and they're covered. The walls are covered in the same mud that the floor was covered in. So it's slick, it's dirty, it's disgusting, it
rank.
stinks. Yeah. So she's standing in this big tunnel, essentially, and she figures out that it's actually a bit like a maze, like a labyrinth of different tunnels that intersect and change among each other. She looks up and she can see the other fae from the courts looking down at her and making comment and yelling things out at her. And they actually refer to her as an it. So they say things like, what's it done? What's it doing? What's it planning?
See,
It just goes to show that they have no regard for mortal or human life, that they refer to her as an it when they clearly know that she is a she. So the Minengard, is it Minengard? Am I pronouncing that right?
Minengard, yeah.
Minengard worm comes out, and it's basically a cross between like a big massive mouth at the beginning with like multiple rows of razor sharp teeth and a worm.
it's like something out of Stranger Things.
Yeah. And it's huge and it too stinks. And Feyre figures out that this is its home. She's been pushed into the labyrinth that is the Minengard's territory. And she goes from being a huntress to being hunted by this massive worm.
Yeah.
So she's running around, she's trying to figure it out. She tries to climb the walls, fails. She gives Rhys what Sarah writes as a vulgar gesture, which
Oh, God.
I picture it to be the middle finger.
Yeah.
What do you picture when she says vulgar gesture?
Yeah. I think, well, it's definitely not this.
See, in my head, sometimes I say that. Because all I can think of is Ross from Friends.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I pictured like a really strong middle finger with almost, that movement as well. But with the finger.
That's such a wog thing to do, isn't it? And I can say that, guys,
Because
I'm a wog.
vulgar gesture. Sarah does actually refer to a few of the women making vulgar gestures, and I picture them all slightly different depending on who it is. Like,
See, I feel like that would be Nesta.
Yeah. I feel like
real
her
intense,
vulgar
like-
gesture is a little bit different than Feyre's vulgar gesture.
Like, if it was me, I'm a fan of like the double
yeah,
middle finger.
yeah.
You do that at work. A fair
I
bit,
do.
actually,
I like, especially to people on the phone. I'm like, if you're watching and you talk to me on the phone at work, and you're annoying me, chances are you have copped a double middle finger.
Chances are Moen's doing the vulgar gesture.
100%.
Yeah. Okay, so Feyre falls into the pit of the Minangard worms. I guess it's dining room. It's covered in bones that it's picked
And
clean.
toilet.
Yeah, it's all in one. And she falls in there. She comes up with this idea to basically trap and kill it, and she just goes with it because she's got no other options.
Yeah.
She's got no way to get out. And during this process, she figures out that the worm is actually blind as well. So she very quickly works the situation to get the benefit out of it, essentially, like works out what she needs to do, and she rolls with it.
Yeah.
So she figures out it's blind. She starts putting some bones in the turns of the tunnels so that when the worm comes through, it sort of hurts itself on the bones. It's a very uncoordinated animal. It's very big, and whilst it is like fast, it's not agile.
Yeah.
So she works that out. So she's quite the huntress. She's able to sort of establish all that in a very, very short period of time. She does lose the worm at one point, and it does cost her quite dearly because Lucien actually shouts out to her, "To your left," and the worm comes like crashing through not its normal tunnel. It comes through the wall and almost eats her. So we find out later that really costs Lucien as well. It really, there's a consequence for him of helping Feyre in this trial. So she cuts her arm to get the attention of the worm with the smell of her blood, and then she runs. The worm chases her. She dives into the pit. The worm dives after her and essentially gives himself a traumatic injury that is
Protocol.
Penetrate.
I want to say, I don't know. I'm not at work at the moment.
Traumatic injury. Like, what is it? Protocol 30.
Yeah, I feel like it's 30.
But then also penetrating injury.
Yeah.
So anyway, traumatic injury that does not sustain life, so the worm dies.
Dead.
And Feyre emerges from the pit. So she actually also uses the bones to create a ladder, climbs out. Yeah.
Epic.
She has injured herself. She has a penetrating injury to her arm, in which, compound fracture to the arm. So she's quite injured, but she does emerge from the pit. She still has a bone in her hand, and she actually throws that bone at Amarantha, like the queen that she is.
Badass.
She doesn't actually
So
hit her.
badass.
No.
She,
I don't think she was trying. Though.
No.
No.
I think she was just doing it as a.
Yeah, another vulgar, gesture. The mud, like the bone lands in, sort of like splashes up on Amarantha's beautiful dress, and she's disdained about Amarantha is disdained.
And stained.
Yeah. Both. About those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Epic.
I think one of my favourite bits is Amarantha's line there is something along the lines of, "I guess anyone could have done that."
Yeah.
She's so dismissive.
Yeah. But she was like so I think she thought that what she'd come up with for task 1 was just going to end Feyre.
Yeah.
Because she was like, "Oh, here you're a huntress. Hunt this."
Yeah.
It's literally a giant worm
Yeah.
versus a small
A little
girl.
baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
And I think she designed this particular trial because before Feyre actually gets put into the tunnels, Amarantha mentions to her that Rhys had told her that Feyre is a huntress. And this is really interesting because Amarantha has made this trial number 1 based on that information. But at no point did Feyre actually give Rhys information that she was a huntress. So it's interesting because Rhys, I think, already knows who she is and what's happened in the Spring Court before she's come under the mountain, other than him seeing her at Calanmai and then again at the manor afterwards. I think he's put together who she is because part of the prophecy was that it has to be a huntress, with a cold heart and whatever. So he's obviously pulled that information out of her head and knows who she is and what's going on, and that's the information he's given to Amarantha.
Yeah. And that is him in his way obviously, not obviously, manipulating Amarantha into playing into Feyre's strengths.
That's right.
So he is ultimately, as we know, looking out for her.
Yeah.
And he's like, right, how can I give Amarantha info that actually is going to benefit Feyre
Yeah.
whilst appearing like it's not benefiting her at all?
Yeah. Yeah.
Very clever.
Very.
All right, chapter 37. So Faye's just finished her first task, been dragged back to her cell by the red-skinned fairy.
Yeah.
She's thrown in there, and the first thing we hear from Sarah J. Maas is that no one comes to see her.
Yeah, she alone.
Lucian hasn't turned up, Rhys hasn't turned up, and she feels like she's all alone. Now,
All alone.
she does start talking about how unwell she's feeling. So she's still got that fracture in her arm.
Yeah.
It's still bleeding a lot, which she does say she's worried about. So it's still wet, it's cold, she's freezing. She can't eat the food because she's nauseated from the wound, basically.
Being septic.
Yeah, and she does say in the chapter, she continues to say that she's not septic.
Yeah.
She says, like, I've got a cold, I'm not feeling well, but it's not that.
That's what a
Most-
septic person
most
would say.
definitely is
Yeah,
that.
that's what a septic person would say.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
not conducive to recovery, the cell.
No.
Is it?
And she's still caked in mud. She's still bloody. She's not doing well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not for me.
Just hanging out in the shadows, waiting for something to happen. When all of a sudden the shadows do start to move and Rhys appears.
Yeah.
Now, he does his little step forward and basically demeans her again because he's like that, basically. Tells her, what would Tamlin think of you right now? She gets fiery quickly this time.
Yeah.
She's very much not happy. Already tells him to get out.
Yeah. Quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. Now, Rhys goes straight into, why do you think no one's come? Why, you thought Lucian would come, he's not here. I'm here.
Here I am.
Let me do something.
Let me help you.
He does also at this point bring up the fact that Lucian hasn't come for a reason and that because of his outburst, he's been lashed. Was it 20 times?
20.
Yeah, 20 times.
Dear lashes.
And just to
And
make
not
it
the good kind.
and just to make it worse, that punishment was from Tam Tam.
Yeah.
And Feyre's heart breaks
Yeah.
for Tam and for Lucian, but
Yeah.
mainly for Tam, I think, for having to put him in that situation. Feyre is still very angry, but Rhys is now giving her that option. He wants to look at her arm, which she's kind of coyly leaving in the corner in the shadows so that he can't see how weak she is. Now, he finally gets her to bring it out by grabbing it and pulling it forward.
Ouch.
And her screaming and basically falling over in pain. She's not okay. He can see that. He basically tells her she's dying, which is something that she knows but has been obviously putting aside in her thoughts and in the hope that, that might not happen.
She was like, someone will come. Or someone did come.
I mean, someone
Feyre.
did come. Yeah.
Okay.
You've been given an opportunity.
Yeah. Take it.
Exactly.
And she does.
Yeah. Rhys gives her this bargain. He basically says that he can fix her arm, but she just has to spend 2 tinsy-wincy weeks of his choosing with him, every month.
Yeah.
And Faye is not impressed.
Not having that.
She's not having that at all. She's adamant that's not going to happen. She's spitting, she's throwing, she's,
like an animal.
She's, which I guess is half her, half the sepsis.
Yeah, there is that.
But yeah, she's she's very adamant, especially because she's already made a pact with him. She's very adamant. She doesn't want to do another one. And then he says fine, and he goes to leave. And as he's leaving, he's starting to shadow away. Faye kind of makes the realization that this is it. She has to say yes. So they go back. They negotiate. It becomes 1 week.
She got it down.
She got it down to 1 week.
I wonder what she would have done, or I wonder what he would have done rather had she been like, okay, bye, and just left it.
Yeah.
That's not the story, Maria. Okay.
No.
But do you know what I mean?
It's interesting to think about.
Yeah. What would he have done? Would he have been like waiting outside, like
Waiting for her to get worse and then come back
and then
in
just
after?
swoop in and fix it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She does actually ask him that in one of the later books. I can't remember the answer
she?
though.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
she does. Yeah,
I can't remember that.
We're going to
can't
have to
remember the
research
answer.
this.
Yeah.
We'll get back to you, Barry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're not from Australia, you will have no idea about that reference. So
She said yes to the bargain. And Rhys leans forward. I think he touches her arm to to heal it. But either way they embrace because she ends up with the bargain tattoo.
yeah.
So she ends up with swirling tattoos that start around her hand and go all the way up her arm in this very dark bluey black ink that has a feline-like eye right in the middle of her palm. Faye's a little bit upset.
She's like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, what is this? She obviously arcs up again. Even though she's feeling a bit better, she arcs up fully. Asking him what it is, he says, this is what the night shift court does, but all Faye can think is, what's Tamlin going to think? And I know the line here from Rhys is, unless you're worried about a certain High Lord's reaction, I think I'll wait until the right moment to tell him.
It's so... I really struggle with this version of Rhys.
Yeah.
Because he's doing it for a reason, but it seems so manipulative and dark in
because
this.
it is.
It is. It
Yeah.
absolutely is. And she thinks it is too.
Yeah.
Which is hard to digest because of who he turns out to be and
Yes.
starkly who Tamlin turns out to be. But on a side note, how about having 10 hours plus worth of ink just like that?
Just like that, so
I
quickly.
would freaking love that.
No pain.
No pain, no peeling, no scabbies.
No, you're just done.
The best. Where's my fucking bargain? I wonder
only.
if anyone's got
They
Feyre's
do.
tattoo.
100%.
Oh, I'm sure.
A friend of-
I would love to see them.
If
Yeah.
you have seen anyone on social media that has Feyre or Rhys's tattoos, tag them in this post
Yeah.
so that we can shout them out because I want to see that.
You can get the tattoo, to have the fake tattoo.
That stencily
You can get a
fake
sleeve or whatever. But a friend of mine
Want.
went to a wedding last weekend and had it hennaed on her arm.
Stop it.
Yeah.
I would do that for the celestial balls and
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah,
That would be
100%.
sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting back to the
Oh, yeah,
actual
so sorry.
story,
Yeah.
I think that Feyre's actually really disappointed by the tattoo because in her mind, it didn't cross her mind that there would be a visual representation of their bargain.
Yeah.
So I think that she was thinking, this is something I can deal with later. I can tell Tamlin about it later. I can think about how I'm going to say it to Tamlin.
Yeah.
Because she knows that the Fae love their bargains and it's got to be worded very specifically. She is septic, so she's not in her right mind. She's not completely alert. And as a result...
She's not fully alert.
Yeah,
P1.
she has made this bargain and I think she was hoping just to have that time to figure out how to tell Tamlin. But now that there's this visual representation, which is on her hand and her arm, which is a very obvious place for someone to have a massive tattoo when you're living in a dungeon and don't really have a change of clothes.
Yeah.
And when you haven't
hide
had a
it.
tattoo.
And
Yeah.
She hasn't got anything else
That's
on her
right.
and she's still a pale
Yes.
white girl.
It's obviously a bargain.
Yeah.
It's not going to be anything else. She didn't sit in the chair,
That's
did
right.
she?
No. And I think that does come into play as well, what Kay's saying with the end of the chapter when she realises that Rhys has done it to hurt Tamlin
Oh, 100%.
rather than to save her.
Yeah,
However,
absolutely.
in the other books later on, every other bargain that is made by someone from the Night Court, it is always represented in ink. So part of me thinks that I'm not sure how Mass explains which tattoos are given for which bargains, but there is always a tattoo. So there was
Yes.
always going to be something.
Yes.
But whether Rhys got the option to choose it, that it was on her hand
I
and what it
reckon
looked
100%.
like.
And how big it was.
Yeah,
and how
100%.
much,
Yeah. Because
100%.
isn't there another one that's just a thin line around an arm? Or is that a
don't-
different series?
No, I can't remember.
can't
but I know
remember.
Nestor's was along her spine in one
Yeah.
of the later.
Yeah.
So there's, I don't know if it's the size of the bargain on a
Yeah.
magical
Yeah.
scale as to how big the tattoo is.
Is it that she makes a bargain with Bryaxis?
Yes.
And
she
it's just
does.
literally a
Yeah.
ring, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
we'll get into
I
that
do
later.
think comes down to who's done it. Like
Yeah.
it's a High Lord, it's Rhys.
Yeah.
He's like the most powerful ever. I think he's 100% chosen.
And it's
all
a
of
bit
the things.
matchy with him too.
Yeah, intentionally.
Yeah.
And really sweetly, he cleans her as
Yes.
part of the bargain. All
Yes.
of the mud and disgusting worm remnants are removed from her skin. Even though she doesn't feel like clean or that she's showered or fresh.
Yeah.
She
appears
Yeah, she
clean.
appears that way.
Yeah. Great. I mean, most kids would be happy with that, wouldn't they?
They don't need to feel clean.
So speaking of Feyre's tattoo arm, she's got the pupil on the inside of her palm, which is that feline eye. She starts to introduce the idea that she feels like that eye is watching her as well. So she captures glimpses of it through the night and, in the time in her cell. And, she swears that the eye is actually watching her. And she gets a really creepy feeling because Rhys is obviously the one that gave her that tattoo. Next part of Amarantha's bargain with Feyre was that when she's not competing in trial, she would be doing some household chores for Amarantha. And so Feyre gets her first and second household chore coming up. So the first one is she's taken to a marble hallway where she's told that she needs to clean the floor. She starts to do so, and the bucket and brush that she's got, the more that she scrubs, the dirtier the floor gets. So
Basically like me mopping at home.
yeah, I feel that pain. I feel it with kids.
Remind me to tell you about my new Bissell mop.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That would have saved Feyre a lot of trouble.
Yeah,
if
not
she
as
had
much.
a Bissell.
Not as much as the gift she gets bestowed upon her.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
So we at this point get introduced to a new character who we've talked around before, which is the Lady of the Autumn Court.
Yep.
So this is Lucien's mother. Feyre hears the door open. She thinks that it's the redskin fairies coming back and that if the hallway wasn't clean, they were going to roast her over the fire for a few rotations. So she's quite scared. Yeah. She hears the door click open and then hears high heels coming down the hallway. Turns around, it's the Lady of the Autumn Court. Now, in payment for Feyre giving her name to Amarantha for Lucien's life when Rhys threatened to wipe out his existence in the beginning when Amarantha asked for Feyre's name, the Lady of the Autumn Court changes the magic of the bucket and all of a sudden the water is clean and the dirt from the hallway is all washed away. She says to Feyre it's in payment for Lucien's life.
Yep.
And that's basically all she says before she exits.
Yeah.
So number one of the boring tasks is done for Feyre, but the next day she's actually given another household chore. And this one is cleaning the lentils out of a fireplace in one of the rooms under the mountain. So she has no more context than that. She goes into the room and she thinks to herself, well, I'm really good at seeing rabbits in the forest, so I'm going to be really good at seeing lentils in a fireplace.
Not the same thing.
Reach where you can. And she starts cleaning out the fireplace, but the more lentils she puts in the bucket, the more lentils that there is. So again, magicked for this completely ridiculous task of cleaning out lentils from a fireplace. Again, she's quite scared that the redskin fairies are going to come back and roast her over the fire. So she does it as quickly as she possibly can. Again, door clicks open. However, this time it's a star-kissed wind that enters through the door and materialises on the bed, like with a hand supporting the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
And it's
this?
yeah. Yeah.
Like this?
And it's Rhys. So Feyre finds out that this is his room under the mountain. The actual room itself has no personal belongings. It's very bare, very barren, just the bed, the dresser, the fireplace.
Oh.
Yeah, nothing to give any indication as to whose room this actually belongs to. This is Feyre's and Rhys's second alone interaction that's quite long. So the first one when she had the bargain in the cell, and then this one which is alone in his room. she asks Rhys if he knows the answer to the riddle, which is quite smart
Yeah.
because, you know,
She's trying.
I had completely forgotten about the riddle at this point.
Yeah.
I had sort of really focused on the trial. And so she asks him and he says, you know, forget about it. I can't tell you the answer. She told us we can't. So, you know, too bad. So sad. Feyre also confronts Rhys about the fact that he knew what Feyre looked like. And so when they brought Claire under the mountain, Rhys would have known that that was not Feyre.
100%.
Yeah.
And so she confronts Rhys about that. And she's like, well, you knew that Claire wasn't me,
Yeah.
and you didn't say anything. So she's starting to put together that Rhys has a bit of an old, like there's an underlying something going on
Yep.
that Rhys is not actually on Amarantha's side at all, which she assumed that he was, given that he was warming her bed. However, she's started to put a few things together, like him betting on her on the first trial and also the fact that, he knew that Claire was not her and didn't say anything.
Yeah.
So she's starting to put the pieces together there. During this discussion, Rhys also transforms a little bit into his beast form, which she gets to see for the first time. And he admits to her that he doesn't like fully yielding to his beast form.
And with that kind of bedroom scene, if you can call it a bedroom scene, as I think the Redskin fairies come in to take her away, or he sends her away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he fills the bucket up
Yes.
with lentils.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
He
fills
goes,
the bucket up.
Yum.
As she's leaving, he does say to the fairies, no more chores, no more tasks, stay out of her cell, don't touch her. If you do, you're to take your own dagger and cut yourself.
Yeah, it's pretty
it's brutal.
what
Yeah.
he says, which
Yeah.
is great because she's finally getting a break.
Yeah.
My favourite thing about this chapter is we hear him say, it's wonderful to see you, Feyre, darling.
Yeah. Have you heard of the theory that Rhys's surname is Darling?
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
Stop it.
Yeah, so he refers to her as Feyre Darling a number of times throughout the entire series, this being the first. However, there is a theory out there that his surname, like you said, Moen, with all the High Lords and how they don't have the full name, or we don't know about them yet. So there is a theory that Rhys's surname is Darling. So when he's referring to Feyre Darling, he's alluding to the fact that, that they're...
I hope that's true
Yeah,
because
me
that
too.
is epic.
I hope it's true, but I don't know, just because I feel like at this point we don't know everything we know about them, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't know
Yeah.
yet.
I think he suspects.
Do you think?
There's a few other things in this chapter, though, that I think that we need to discuss.
Go ahead. Receiving.
So, in relation to him being asked by Feyre about why he didn't give her away with the whole Claire thing, he said she plays her games, like Amarantha plays her games and I play mine.
Yeah.
And she says she let you out for fire night, and he insinuates that cost him greatly.
Yes.
We don't really know exactly what that cost him, but interestingly enough.
We do learn.
Yeah. She asks about his powers as well. And she sort of is probing to see, because she considers him a really powerful being, right? But he tells her that this is like a 15th of what he has.
Yeah.
Amarantha has type.
Sorry.
A what?
I wasn't expecting you to use that language.
I think my husband says that, a 15th. Yeah.
Like I knew what you meant, but I was
A
like,
little itty bitty
I
bit.
just need to confirm you didn't think that was a different word than it actually was.
No, just a little teeny.
I got it, but
See, I didn't even
Anyway,
get that.
so we learn that all of the High Lords can shapeshift, and then
so they all have a beast form.
yes,
Yeah.
and we see his wings here.
Yeah.
So she describes them as horrific, stunning, and the face of 1,000 nightmares and dreams.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's intense.
So cool.
it is
Because
intense.
he also gets his talons and stuff out, doesn't he?
Yes.
yeah,
And
like
his
he
little weird little
shows
feet.
bits
His
and
claws.
pieces of
Yeah.
his shapeshifting. I freaking love that. Anyway,
I think the only other thing is that he talks about how she's been quite bold in this one. Like she's asking, tell me the answer to the riddle.
Yeah, what's the riddle?
What are your powers?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? What about Claire? Like
Yeah.
so many questions
Yeah.
that she's full on just asking. And he does say something along the lines of like, you're being very bold, to ask these.
She's got
of
no
me.
filter.
No,
with him.
Yeah,
No.
and she makes mention of the fact that like ordinarily she will be so measured and controlled in front of Tamlin
Yeah.
and Lucian,
Yeah.
but with him she's
She-
just like,
She can't control
no.
herself. Neither
No
can
way.
I.
Same. Relatable much. All right. So this brings us to chapter 39. So after Rhys aways the red, what are they? Guards.
The
Redskin fairies.
Redskin fairies. Yep.
We need a better way to refer to them.
What can we call them? Douchebags. There we go.
Just the
So
guards.
Rhys tells the douchebags to leave Feyre alone.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
she's back in her cell and hot meals are appearing, which is great because she's a hungry girl. She didn't have a lot of fat on her to begin with.
Yeah.
She was slender. And now she's alone in her complete isolation because nobody's coming to visit her. So it's ages before she sees somebody again.
Yep.
She finds herself talking to the tattoo occasionally, and she swears one time that the eye on her palm blinks. Interesting. So we see two high fae females glistening through the shadows, and they appear fully formed, and then they glamour Feyre, and they take her out of the cell, and they take her to a really nondescript room, and they begin to paint on her body. So after she's been bathed, she's completely naked and she's being painted in all of the nooks and crannies of her body.
She doesn't resist either.
No, she's just like, she's got to go with it. So she knows by now not to resist pretty much anything that happens under the mountain because
Yeah.
there's obviously consequences to every action. So they're painting her intimate bits and then they dress her in what can only be described as a loincloth or
A sheer scarf.
What
did I say?
I don't know.
Fabric. Just fabric.
It's essentially
Draped.
Someone's got like a sheer blind and chopped it up and clipped it together and it's leaving nothing to the imagination and it's see-through. So it's as slooty as you can get. So she's regal from the neck up with this like impeccable makeup and then she's like completely covered head to toe in paint. Rhys appears and sort of explains that he wants Feyre to escort him to a party. So he's sort of playing around and he's touching her on the shoulder and Feyre's looking down whilst he touches her and you can see the paint repair itself where he's bothered it. So as soon as he's finished touching it, it snaps back into perfection like it hasn't been touched at all. And he says to her, how else would I know if anyone touched you?
Yeah.
So you can see like this possessive behaviour that he's starting to exhibit, but obviously for a good reason. He says to her, I don't like my belongings tampered with, which is, again, wildly possessive. I happen to like.
Yeah. I don't know why I like that. It makes me question so many things.
Yeah. And then we're in the throne room,
Yeah.
in the throne room, and he bows to Amarantha and he has Feyre beside her and she's obviously, dressed as she's dressed and
Or not dressed.
Scantily.
undressed scantily. And he says Merry Midsummer and bows to Amarantha. So we know that this party is because of some sort of, solstice.
Yeah.
And then he tells the entire room about the bargain because obviously this tattoo is out and about, but under the paint.
Yeah.
So it's I can't remember how it's described. Do they cover the tattoo?
No, I don't think they do. I think this is the point where it's revealed to Tamlin that they have the bargain. So the paint that she's painted with is the same swirls of the tattoo.
Yeah.
So she basically looks like she's covered head to toe in the tattoo, but I don't know. So I guess Tamlin doesn't know which part
Which
of the
part.
tattoo is
Yes.
the bargain.
Yeah.
If
Sure.
that makes sense.
Yeah. So she's clearly wearing not much. You can see everything. It's apparent her body is not unmarked as it was before.
Yeah.
And so Rhys takes great pleasure in revealing the intricacies of the bargain, and Tamlin, stone-faced as always, which I can appreciate. He's trying not to give Amarantha fuel to know what pains him in relation to how Feyre is being treated. So he's just trying to be non-reactive as possible because he doesn't want Amarantha to learn why certain things would bother him more than others, because she's just going to use that as fuel. So Rhys beckons Feyre to drink. And she's like, I've had great experiences of fairy wine in the past. Sure, pass it over. Not really. She's very...
Well, she was warned by Alice that the wine under the mountain is not the same as the wine that they had at the summer solstice.
Yes. And obviously told not to drink it at all. Don't drink the fairy wine. Drank it anyway at the summer solstice and had the time of her life.
Yeah.
Fiddlegate. And so anyway, she's drinking this wine and she basically has no recollection of the night, and she just wakes up in her cell.
Yeah.
And then she's visited by somebody, finally.
Yeah.
Lucien appears rather gingerly and explains her behaviours, what she was doing at the party and so on and so forth. She was dancing. We can only imagine what sort. And she was sitting on Rhys's lap when she wasn't dancing. So Rhys was manipulating her to behave in a way that allowed her to be safe, but allowed her to appear unsafe.
Yeah.
Very clever.
Yeah.
And just to piss Tam.
Yeah,
Just piss
absolutely.
Tam off.
Everything Rhys does, which he says, is to annoy the fuck out of Tam.
Yeah.
Yeah. His greatest pleasure.
Yes.
So night after night, she's doing the same sort of thing. Now, poor old Lucien, he's not in a great way.
No.
He basically has been absent for a very good reason. And it's because he obviously was put in a position whereby he felt the need to intervene for Feyre's first task. And he's shouted something that has assisted her, and he's been greatly punished for that.
Yeah.
So because Amarantha never does her own bidding, she uses other people as pawns to carry out her whims. So she has bestowed upon Tamlin a great triumph to hurt Lucien, which she knows is going to hurt everyone. Obviously, it's physically going to hurt Lucien, but it's emotionally going to hurt Tamlin. And she just takes great pleasure in knowing that she has that much power that she can do all of these things.
So he is
20 lashes?
Yeah, it's 20 lashes.
Yeah.
And he explains to her that the reason he didn't come earlier and that she was silly for making that bargain with Rhys because he was coming, but the reason he couldn't come earlier was because he was injured and today, today's the only first day he's been able to walk.
I think Amarantha was making it so the wound wouldn't heal.
Yeah.
So like she was
magic,
using
so the wound wouldn't heal.
Yeah. So like it took a lot longer. So like you said, first time he can actually walk anywhere.
Yeah.
However, Lucien being one of my favourite characters.
Absolutely.
Even though he's injured, is still 100% himself.
Yeah.
So he gives Feyre a cloak from Amarantha's court. So it's got the symbol of her court on it, which is the mountain. And she tries to give it back to him when he leaves the cell. However, he says to her, you should keep the cloak because besides, I've seen enough of you through that gown to last me a lifetime.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I remember that now.
Yeah.
Yeah. He is surprisingly witty throughout turmoil.
Yeah.
Because his whole life is pretty sad.
Yeah.
He's for a good character for many a good reason.
Yeah.
So we're back in the throne room, and so night after night she's getting taken by the two Fey women. She is being washed and painted exactly the same and wearing the gossamer, leaving nothing to the imagination gown.
Yeah.
If you
Different
like.
colours though.
Is it?
Yeah, different colours each night.
Roger. Okay, well that's quite nice, isn't it? Variety. Yeah. And then we see an altercation in the throne room whereby there's a summer court fairy who tries to escape under the mountain. Yeah. And Amarantha obviously isn't going to tolerate such behaviour. So she instructs Rhys to shatter the fairy's mind.
Yeah.
And Rhys obviously is trying to do her bidding without doing it in a brutal way. So he's still trying to hold on to who he is, but he needs to appear like as if he's just carrying out her whims, because he obviously doesn't want to spark any curiosity in regards to her doubting him.
Yeah.
But he still needs to do shit things.
Yeah.
So he kills this fairy, and she makes mention, I asked you to shatter his mind. I didn't want you to kill him. So he knows how brutal his powers can be, and that living basically with a shattered mind is way worse than just the mercy of having a quick kill.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Yeah. And before he does kill him, he is asked by Amarantha to infiltrate his mind and find out if there was anyone else that was part of the under the mountain escape. And he tells Amarantha that there was nobody else involved and that he had no ulterior motive and no allies in the escape plan at all.
Lies.
And, yeah.
Absolute lies.
And Feyre, again, it's just another point where Feyre is starting to put together that Rhys has an ulterior motive that doesn't involve supporting Amarantha.
Yeah. It's like you can see the glimpses of good, but when you're first reading this series, you probably don't see it
You miss them,
as intricately as you would the second or third time around, because you just think Rhys is a baddie.
Yeah. You're not looking for it.
You're not looking for it at all. Very interesting. That takes us to chapter 40.
Yeah. So we're up to chapter 40, which actually starts with Feyre's second task.
Yeah.
So she's up to number 2. She was successful with the first one. And again, Amarantha thinks that she's going to kill Feyre today. Feyre is taken out of her cell by the red-skinned fairies. She's not taken to the throne room this time. She's taken to a very nondescript, non-intricate, there's no marble carvings or anything like that with the description of the throne room. It's just a very plain but very big room that she's taken to, wooden floors. She's lowered into a rectangular pit, and she finds, so once she is lowered in, there's a second portion to the pit, and it's divided by a massive metal gate, essentially. On the other side of the metal gate is Lucien, and he is chained to the floor. She hears a noise, like a great groaning noise, looks up, and above her she sees another platform that has really large blunt spikes on it, and that is actually lowering towards them. So
Terrifying.
yeah. In front of her is a plaque which has some words on it that she needs to read, decipher, and then choose one of the levers, lever 1, lever 2, or lever 3. Amarantha doesn't know that Feyre can't read. However, this is pretty obvious in this one that she can't.
Yeah.
Feyre makes some decisions around which lever she's going to pull in the last few seconds. She decides to not pull lever 1 because lever 1 to her symbolises one person, like Amarantha, standing out on her own just as one. So 1's no good. She loves lever 2 because lever 2 is 2 people, her and Tamlin, who are in love. I'm not quite sure. I mean, she's reaching for some justifications here.
Yeah.
But
It's the only thing she's got, right?
Yeah. So she reaches for lever 2. That she's made her decision. She reaches for it, and her hand and arm starts burning. And the hand that she reaches with is the same hand that she's got the bargain on, the tattoo. So she reaches for it, starts burning. She turns it over and looks at her palm, and the eye actually narrows at her. She pulls her hand back, reaches again, and the same thing happens. She gets this explosive burning pain in her arm. She reaches for lever 3, and she's just met with cool stone. So she's like, what is actually going on here? She looks up through the grate, and she sees, and I quote, a star-flecked violet gaze looking back down at her. So that's Rhys. She pulls lever 3 as she's met with cool stone, pulls lever 3, the gate above them stops. All the time, Lucien is on the other side going, I can do something!
Poor Lucien. Lucien's just like
Yeah.
thrown under the bus every
I
time.
know. I
Yeah.
feel bad.
Yeah. So it's really interesting that he is thrown under the bus a few times, because when Feyre gives her name to Amarantha for Lucien's life, Amarantha sees that. And we talked a little bit before about using the things that are really painful to Feyre. So Amarantha knows that Lucien is one of Feyre's weaknesses. That's the only thing she's been able to pick up on that is a weakness because it happened in front of her. Yeah. So I'm not surprised that she keeps using Lucien again and again. After this trial, she's obviously won the trial, the second trial, which, yay. But she's overwhelmed with defeat and she believes that she'll never free Tamlin and that she's an illiterate mortal, you know, all that sort of stuff. She's essentially really down in the dumps about, even though she's won the trial, she's not actually happy or excited or thinks that there's any light at the end of the tunnel.
Sad.
Yeah. We start to see this pattern from her from sort of now onwards, that she feels an ultimate level of defeat. The platform is now raising, and as it's raising, Rhys actually talks into Feyre's mind and tells her, you know, not to break, not to let Amarantha see her cry. And he essentially coaches her through facing Amarantha once the platform is raised, facing her and then turning around and walking out without breaking down. Yeah. She does that, which is great. She's taken back to her cell again and she's visited yet again for the second time in her cell by Rhys. Yeah. This particular part of the story is where he licks away her tears.
So weird.
It's a bit weird.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm a fan of that.
No.
My only thoughts were maybe like he's trying like so hard to like not confuse her, but like distract her from whatever the hell's going on. If I lick her face, maybe she won't think about it anymore.
Perhaps.
Yeah. But that's all I've got. It's weird.
She does tell him, she says, look, that was disgusting. And he says, was it? I could have sworn I detected something that felt differently interesting. So whilst Moen, you're not into it, Feyre is.
Feyre is, Look, you know, anyway.
Go, say it.
No, it's fine. It's fine. We've heard enough of like my
preferences. Rhys confirms in that conversation as well that he knows that Feyre can't read. And when he leaves, Feyre actually makes the connection that she realises that Rhys had kept her from shattering today. Yeah. He'd been the only thing in between her and failure. Yeah. Even though she won the trial, the failure that she's talking about is her internal failure and her internal. So she's up until this point had a huge amount of motivation to keep going, to free the fairies, to free Perinthian, to have the relationship and being with Tamlin. So she's been very motivated, but we start to see now that starts to disappear, and in its place she's despairing about the whole thing.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting contrast between like how Tamlin is under the mountain, because he's like a mute. Yeah. And now she's comparing like Rhys's actions and how he's showing up for her. Yeah. And the complete opposite that Tamlin is doing.
Yeah. There's a few reasons that she starts to feel this eternal sadness.
Yeah. She's alone apart from this, you know, like Lucien's doing as much as possible and then otherwise there's this cruel stranger. Yeah. So we've covered quite a lot today. That was probably a longer recording than what you're used to, because there's a lot heating up as we get to the big crescendo of the end of A Court of Thorns and Roses. There's only a couple of episodes left in this actual book before we move on to book 2, and we're so excited because if you thought ACOTAR was slow, book 2 is probably one of the most epic seconds you can ever get. Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited. So excited. So I think that that's a great place to leave it. We'll see you all next week, and we're thrilled that you could be here with us. That's it for this episode of the Night Shift Court podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Please head over to Instagram and TikTok and give us a follow at the Night Shift Court.
Please leave us a good review on Spotify or wherever you're listening.
And if you'd like to reach out, you can contact us at thenightshiftcourt@gmail.com.
This shift is over.
Blessed be the fruit.
I hope the night is kind.